Welcome everybody, my name is Tayfun Balcik and I will host this event with Doreen Balout. The name of the event is Uncomfortable Solidarity, Palestinian and Kurdish Cause. And this event is part of the Week Against Racism, organized by the Committee 21 March, a platform against racism and discrimination. And the debate center Pakhuis de Zwijger is also one of the co-organizers. The Week Against Racism is made possible by the municipality of Amsterdam, in which from the 15th until the 19th of March, every day a panel discussion, art performance, movies and documentaries about racism and discrimination will be showed on the social media channels of the organizing parties. And this will all lead up to the national demonstration, which will be held on Sunday, 21st of March in Amsterdam, but also in other cities in the Netherlands. And all of these events can be watched afterwards on the YouTube channel of the website Pakhuis de Zwijger. Before we go to our panels, our 5 panelists, I give the word to Doreen Balout, who is the co-organizer of this event, and she will tell us how this event was initiated 2 years ago.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Tayfun and I met in 2019 at the preliminary meetings for the Week Against Racism in 2020, which was cancelled last minute because of the lockdown then. And we found ourselves together at the table for international solidarity. Me as a representative of DocB, Tayfun for the Hague Peace Project, and he was there with his 2 Turkish Kurdish volunteers, Evin Cihan Kizanak and Mustafa Çalar.
Yes.
Yes? So then we had to find a topic that we could collaborate on, and for us it was quite obvious that the Palestinian and the Kurdish struggle have a lot in common. They are both victims of the imperial powers, England and France, dividing the Middle East after World War I, deciding the fate for the people who were living there. And so both the Palestinian and the Kurdish people lack the right to self-determination. A large portion of the stateless people worldwide are Palestinians and Kurdish people. At the same time, we realized that solidarity between the 2 peoples is a complex issue. And so that is what we would like to discuss here tonight.
Thank you, Doreen. It was a really interesting exchange of ideas, also students coming from Turkey. We started to initiate this program, and then Corona happened, and now we're here in 2021. We have 5 guest speakers, and I will introduce them now. Starting with our online panelist, Serda Nehirci. Welcome, Serda. Serda lives an active life against racism and patriarchy inside the anti-imperialist and anti-fascist migrant organization HİTİF, Federation of Workers from Turkey and the Netherlands. Then we have Guido van Leemput, who is active in the fields of anti-war activism, human rights, and socialism since 1980. He's one of the founders of the Peace Initiative, Amsterdam Peace Initiative, and associated with Kurds and Friends and the Kifaya Foundation. Then we have Taghreed El-Khodari, who sits here at the table. She's a freelance political and media analyst, born and raised in Gaza. She reported from 2001 until 2009 from Gaza for the New York Times, Al Hayat, LBC TV, and as an analyst for the International Crisis Group. She covered the Second Intifada, Israel's unilateral withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian Civil War in 2007, and the war on Gaza in 2008-2009. And then we have Dr. Hila Dayan. Welcome, Hila. Hila Dayan teaches as a political scientist at Amsterdam University College. She wrote her dissertation about Israel's occupation and the regime of separation. In 2018, she went to Turkey and joined the protest against the persecution of Turkish academics. And last but not least, Ozan Türkdoğan is a political scientist, works for the municipality of Amsterdam, published articles about Turkey, the Kurds, and the struggle for power in Syria. And since 2015, he also joined dialogue events at The Hague Peace Projects. So welcome to you all.
Thank you.
We have a lot to discuss, and we also, with Doreen, made a PowerPoint presentation about to give some context for also the viewers about the Palestinian and the Kurdish issue. And I will click, and we first start with some context videos, and starting with the Israeli and Palestinian situation.
Here's the second thing to understand. Israel was founded as a Jewish state. But now ask yourself, what exactly does that mean? People had lots of ideas about what a Jewish state should look like. Some called for equality for all citizens. But what was created, in practice, was institutional discrimination against non-Jews. In other words, Israel ended up being built on a blueprint of exclusion. The Israeli government wants maximum land and resources for Jews, but not the Palestinians living there. That's why, inside Israel, Jews get special privileges, including rights to land and housing, that are denied to the Palestinian citizens, who make up 20% of Israel's population. That's also part of why Israel has never defined its borders. In fact, they still hold on to land, the West Bank and Gaza, that they conquered in the war in 1967. Since then, Israel has built Jewish settlements throughout the occupied West Bank, building Jewish-only cities and supplying them with infrastructure like roads and army camps, schools, and even a college. Military occupations are meant to be temporary, but after 40-plus years, this one looks permanent and entirely unjust.
This is Israel and Palestine, and now we will switch to the context for Turkey and with regards to the Kurds.
When the Ottoman Empire dissolves at the end of World War I, you have a number of different agreements that the colonial powers come to. You have the Sykes-Picot Agreement, you have the Treaty of Sèvres in 1920, which Turkey particularly took a lot of issue with, basically because it was a lot of the Allies kind of carving up Turkey into a number of parts, giving territory to Italians and Greeks and British and so forth.
That treaty did include the possibility of the Kurdish people having their own state, but Mustafa Kemal Ataturk played a pivotal role in changing that. See, he was a colonel in the Ottoman army at the time and was able to consolidate the remainder of the Ottoman military to expel the Allied powers, founding Turkey. With that, the possibility of a Kurdish state was abandoned, and the new treaty, the Treaty of Lausanne, divided the region.
It was kind of the agreement, and this is a really loose way of interpreting it, but France would have Syria and the Brits would have Iraq and so forth. So basically you have the drawing of boundaries that not only kind of divide populations based on ethnic and religious divisions, but also are manipulated in order to kind of serve the colonial powers' interests.
Yeah, it's also important to refer to the Balfour Declaration, which we didn't hear at the videos, but was also originated in the First World War. And yeah, all problems we face today with regards to the Kurds and the Palestinians are stemming from what happened after the Ottoman Empire collapsed. So that as a side note, but yeah, the problem we saw with Doreen, these meetings in 2019, was that basically that we have two states, Israel and Turkey, who have who are supporting each other's minorities. Israel voicing support to the Kurds for independence, for statehood, and from the other side, Turkey, who supports the Palestinians but denies the rights for their own minority, and we want to talk about this issue today. So if you have some reactions on all what I've said now, or the context, then you can do that, or we can switch to another couple of videos.
Can I say something about the context then?
Yes, no problem.
Switch? You know, I think one thing which is not, which is also plays a part and not mentioned is the fact that we have also racism and discrimination in Turkey. So I think it's more than only the big imperialist powers dividing us. I think definitely that's a part of the truth, and the other part is that we have also some problems.
Exactly. Yes.
We have difficulties to accept another person.
The first introductory context film was more specified, and in the Turkish case it was left out. So thanks also for that remark.
Yes, of course.
Maybe we can go to another videos. We have first some statements. Netanyahu and Erdogan. He who kills Kurds in his own country, who denies terrible massacre of Armenian people, won't preach to Israel. And if I read something like this, then I think, would you also say this about, Palestinians in the same manner? And then from Erdogan about Israel, today the Palestinian territory is under occupation, has become one of the most striking places of injustice. And you will never hear Erdogan saying this about Kurds. Here's a video from 2014, Netanyahu supporting Kurdish independence.
As fighting between Iraq's rival factions splinters the country, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu voiced his support for Kurdish statehood.
Regarding the Kurds, they are a fighting people that have proved their political commitment, political moderation, and deserve political independence.
Israel has quietly maintained military and intelligence ties with the Kurds for decades, seeing in the minority ethnic group a buffer against shared Arab adversaries.
We should support international efforts to strengthen Jordan and support the Kurdish aspiration for independence.
We can continue and
על מה שקורה בכורדיסטן, כאילו עם הכורדים.
כיום, במצב של היום?
כן.
אני לא כל כך פוליטיקאי, זה רק מה ששמעתי זה, אבל זה נורא והיום. לדעתי. נורא והיום.
את חושבת מה?
גזענות לשמה וזה נורא והיום.
מה שקורה כאילו נגדם.
נגדם.
כן.
כן.
ואת חושבת שמגיע להם מדינה שלהם?
לא, הם יכולים להיות מדינה שוויונית כמונו, כמו בישראל, למרות שיש לנו את כל הבלגן שלנו. אני לא חושבת שמגיע להם מדינה שלהם.
הכורדים?
לכורדים.
אוקיי, למה?
אז לכורדיסטן יהיה לבד, לעיראק יהיה לבד, הם ביחד. הם ביחד, למה הם נלחמים עם האחים, אחד עם השני?
אני לא יודע.
אז זהו.
למה אנחנו לא אחים אחד עם השני פה?
זה בדיוק מה שאמרתי לפני. אז אם ככה אז מגיע להם. אז מה, אתה רוצה להגיד, מגיע להם?
לא יודע, מה שאת רוצה.
It was really interesting also to see her thinking, how do you say that? She thinks in the...
it's ahead already. Like if I say this,
exactly.
then I logical conclusion.
Exactly. And maybe this...
Does he support the Kurds as well in Turkey?
هل أنت بتأيد الأكراد في تركيا كمان؟
الأكراد الأتراك؟
أكراد اللي في تركيا.
الأكراد اللي في تركيا.
The Kurds that are in Turkey? نعم.
لا الأكراد أنا ضد قوات سوريا الديمقراطية يعني مع
I am against the democratic
تركيا هي المهتمة بالشعب السوري.
Of Syria. The Turks are the ones who are helping the Syrians.
No, but I'm talking about the Kurds. Does he believe in Kurdish independence?
هو عم بسألك عن الأكراد. هل أنت بتآمن إنه الأكراد لازم يكون عندهم استقلالهم؟
لا.
مستقلين. No, I don't.
Why not? They're in the same position as the Palestinians.
ليش؟ ما هم تقريبا وضعهم زي وضع الفلسطينية.
الأكراد موجودين يا أختي في 3 دول في العراق وسوريا وتركيا.
My dear sister, the Kurds are in 3 countries: Syria, Iraq, and in Turkey. If they were to have a country, how would they have a country?
They would get independent places.
ممكن يحصلوا على
مكان
مستقل في كل هاي الدول أو أمكنة مستقلة في كل هاي الدول ممكن. يعني هو عم بيسألك مش.
أنا طبعا ضد يكون دولة للأكراد.
الأكراد شعب شعب
بحب الحروب وبحب العدائية.
Because the Kurds are people that like violence and they like wars.
Yes, painful statement at the end.
But who he is, you know, it's...
Sorry, again?
There is a need for education, awareness here, you know,
Yes.
you bring anybody in the street and you cannot say, oh, that is the opinion of the people in the street in West Bank or Gaza or the Palestinian.
It's we don't
so
say
it's
this.
random, but it's interesting. So what you know, what we can tell here, there is a need for education, awareness, and luckily we have now at least social media that is not that it can be part of it, not controlled by regimes, not controlled by, not all of it, of course, but we can from here, from Europe, we can do something, you know, to the people on the ground.
Exactly. This is plucked from the internet, and it's also we saw also here in the anti-racist movement we saw some similar voices, you know, with regards to Palestinians. People from Turkey say yes, of course they have to be independent. But when it comes to Kurds, they say, okay, that's a bridge too far. Yes. Serda, is it, I saw your hand, or was it something else?
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to say something similar. Like, if you would show footage from a street interview in Turkey, probably they would use the exactly same sentences about Kurdish case.
Sorry, again?
I said I would say the similar things, like exactly what you just have said. If you would have footage of a interview in Turkey, they would use exactly the same sentences, but then they would talk about Kurds.
Yes.
We actually received, when we announced this event, we received emails at DocP BDS the Netherlands from Turkish people saying, what are you doing? The Kurds are violent. Turkey is very nice to the Kurds, except to the PKK.
Yeah, but that's an interesting discourse, because you also see this from the Israeli side, about when it talks about Palestinians, they say, yeah, these are violent people and terrorists and everything. So that's also the reason why we sit here. We have to talk about these narratives. We can show a bit more videos, or we can go to the statements. I'm looking at Doreen.
Maybe we can show the
another video. Yes. Then I have to switch.
No people that doesn't.
Oh.
No people that doesn't deserve a state.
This one or?
Okay.
Including the Jews.
حتى اليهود كمان بيستاهلوا دولة.
هون بدك تفرق بين اليهود وبين الزين وبين الصهيونية.
Here you have to make a difference between
the
Jews and the Zionists.
Yeah. That's what Zionism is. Jews having a state.
بس هذه هي الصهيونية إن اليهود يكون في عندهم دولة.
لا هاي مش دولة يهودية، هاي دولة صهيونية.
This is not a Jewish state. This is a Zionist state.
هاي دولة صهيونية مش دولة يهودية.
This is a Zionist state, not a Jewish state.
Any reactions on this video?
Yeah, interesting actually, and this can bring me to the definition that of anti-Semitism. And we have International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA. They let Israel define the word anti-Semitism. And Israel aim when it comes to that definition is to delegitimize the Palestinian cause and to silence whoever believe in the Palestinian just cause. As this guy said, you know, they equated Judaism to Zionism, which is really like it's something you cannot do, and it doesn't lead, it suppress anyone from expressing his or her own opinion freely. Because whoever now is criticizing Israel, anti-Semitic. And that is really very dangerous, and I think...
And is it because Zionism is a political ideology and Jewishness is Jewishness?
Nobody's against the fight against anti-Semitism must be deployed within the frame of international law and human rights. And it should be part of the fight against all forms of racism, including, you know, Islamophobia, including anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian racism. I mean, and what this definition by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance made, they target left-wing. They target with that. They target the human rights groups. They target a movement like BDS, which is extremely peaceful. So they are now. They put them all in a corner. You cannot criticize Israel as a state. You cannot say, if you say Israel committed war crimes in Gaza, and I happen to be a journalist, I witnessed that. You know, I can be now accused because of this definition that they came out. Oh, she's anti-Semitic.
Everything is anti-Semitic. Yes.
So you block. Nobody is daring now to speak out, to criticize Israel. And I think, you know, all minorities, you know, the Kurds, the Palestinians, we have to focus on one thing: international law, human rights, and how to strengthen whoever believe in this, in the right of all, in equality.
Hilla, you want to react?
Yes, very shortly. Just to say that this is what Tahir was just talking about, is an immense political struggle at the moment. And a lot of progressive Jewish groups around the world are fighting the fight against this definition, this very twisted, weaponizing anti-Semitism in order to silence critique. And by the way, the first film that you showed on Israel-Palestine, the historical one, was made by Jewish Voice for Peace,
yes,
which is an American Jewish progressive organization. So you see that there are many, you know, when we talk about Jewishness and the Jewish world, there's also a global progressive Jewish movement with solidarity with Palestinians, and it's just I wanted to just mention that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's of course an international debate, but we also want to focus on the Netherlands, starting with that.
But it is related also to the Netherlands.
Yes, it's related.
Because now, you know, there is the guilt feeling when it comes to the Holocaust. That's already something that makes people silent, unable to express their opinion. Not everybody, but many.
Yeah, it's
they
all
avoid,
connected
they don't
to
wanna,
each other, yes.
You know, and all of a sudden they come out with this definition, you know, I keep saying the name because it's not known for many people, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance.
Yeah.
Here it's known, I think, but you know, when they do that, they discard any visions. You cannot, if you think of a vision, like, oh, you know, there is this vision of a binational state. Oh, anti-Semitic, immediately, don't even talk about it.
Yes.
So where is freedom of expression in the heart of the Netherlands?
So it's not really about freedom of expression, it's about expressing what...
It's very sad that we, at this time of history, you know, we haven't learned the lesson. The Holocaust is a very powerful lesson. Hatred against Jews as Jews should never be tolerated.
I saw a hand of, sorry to interrupt,
please,
Serda.
yes. I cannot see.
Thank you. Yes, actually, it's in addition what you just have said. For example, maybe this is a good example, recent example. There is a solidarity network with Palestinian prisoners. This network is called Samidun, and this network is like defined as a terrorist organization. And they're also active in Europe. So there is not any voice, not any statement from the European states or organizations about this problematic definition.
Yeah, it's...
if it would be the opposite, probably they would, like, you would hear a lot of people screaming that it's anti-Semitic, but this is like maybe one of the best examples which you just have mentioned.
Yeah, it's a process of dehumanization, and which is, of course, very destructive for people to talk with each other. We have. Yes.
Can I also say something about this?
The last reaction before we go to the statements.
I also want to react to what you're saying, Taghreed, and I think you're right, but it is also changing, because if you see to the discourse from the Netherlands, how we look to that conflict, to the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts, I think maybe 10 years ago it was really one-sided pro-Israel. But it's slowly, but it is changing against more balanced view. So there's definitely some progress made on this topic.
Definitely, the position of the Netherlands is they believe in two-state solution.
But in the local elections here in Amsterdam, I mean, there was all the parties signed this definition. In Amsterdam, except for Bayern. That's the only party.
They agreed with the definition.
All of them, all the parties, all the local parties.
The definition
of the anti-Semitism that is pushed by Israel.
And when it comes to
that was last year, right?
Yes, talking about Bayern, we will also present the exit polls, because there's election day today in the Netherlands. Yes. So good to mention that. And talking about the Netherlands, we go to our first statement, but before that we have some things from the media about exclusion or dehumanization of Palestinian, but also Kurds, who are put immediately to the terrorist frame, and also especially from right-wing media like Hamas, Oma, Anja Meulenbelt from the Dagelijkse Standaard. And most interesting thing is the resolutions we have in the chamber, in the parliament. This is really interesting, that right-wing parties are most of the time pro-Israel and also pro-Kurdish when it comes to resolutions about the Kurdish issue, but and the right-wing parties, these are against Palestinian, who are pro-Palestinian or pro-human rights. And the left-wing parties, they have a more,
they support both.
Yeah, they support both. Sides. So we have to excuse them. There is one exception, and that's DENK, the political party, and they are pro-Palestinian in their resolutions, and but when it comes to Kurds, they are the only party in the Netherlands who vote against these resolutions.
And it's also interesting to see that here the resolutions for Palestine both were actually entered by DENK, Kuzu, whereas PVV, the one about recognizing Jerusalem as the capital, that's PVV.
Thank you. I also saw Serda. She wants to react. No? Okay. So, and Guido? No reactions from Guido?
Yeah, well, I don't know where to start. Actually.
Can we have...
He has to unmute.
He has to unmute.
No. So, no. Oh, I'm in. I'm definitely...
So, yes.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I thought I was in. Well, I don't know how to, at what abstract level or concrete level to start, but in my professional life, I'm part of the Socialist Party in the lower house for the second period. I have been up and down for almost 20 years, so I'm the assistant on in the Team International on Sadat Karabulut. To add to the activism which was just given by the moderator. But what I think is happening, I don't know if it's appropriate time to bring it in the meeting at the moment, but what I think is happening is that both as Israel and Turkey have been developed to regional big powers, which are built up by the West, by us, both Israel and Turkey. I can explore on this, but this is the first statement. But secondly, both regional powers, Turkey and Israel, have been working on let's say, an agency here in the West in order to influence politics. So if we have the old-fashioned international solidarity of the left from the imperialist center, which we are with third world countries, for instance, Kurds or Palestinians, it's changed because the Turkish government has their own agents over here. The Israeli government has their own agents over here. So what happened in the anti-occupation movement by the Western, or perhaps the international solidarity movement, in order to put pressure on Israel, to my mind, it was the decision by the Dutch pension fund PGGM in 2013 that Israel went in full alarm and decided to give a counter movement, which ended up in this IHRA definition and in blackscaping, or how do you explain this in English, in making from everybody who was in solidarity with Palestinians quasi-terrorist or something. And this is an ideological struggle we have lost, because the world, perhaps not completely lost, but we lost the momentum. And the world has changed into multipolar active centers. And Turkey, both Turkey and Israel are very active. And of course we have PVV and the Forum over here, which are actually in the same boat, because they stem from colonial thinking from the Netherlands, which has been a blackout for 50 years or something. We're completely back.
Thank you, Guido.
Yeah, sorry, it's a speech.
Thank you. No, there's no problem. Hila wants to react on that. So
yeah, thank you, Guido. This is an interesting analysis of the Netherlands. I think that one of the things that we need to be very careful about is not to take Erdogan and Netanyahu's statement at face value, and to understand how deep the alliance is between Turkey and Israel, based on multiple interests that they have in the region. So when we are looking at the Dutch context, we must not be dragged after Denk in thinking that Turkey is representing the Palestinian cause, because it is not. This is one of the main hypocrisies also by Turkey, and I think that this is also. So
you say it's all talk and not so much.
I think that Denk is really an Erdogan line here, and they are just simply, it is a manipulation, a sort of Turkish politics playing out here without, and we as international solidarity people need to look beyond that to see the alliances, to see the power, to see how Turkey is actually making a lot of just one small example, to give a concrete example. When Trump announced moving the embassy to Jerusalem, then it was supposed to be done, the movement with a Turkish contractor, and this has been revealed as a scandal in Turkey. But they had no problem, Turkey as a state, allowing this contractor work to move the embassy to Jerusalem. So it's just a small example to show how Turkey is hypocritical about the Palestinian cause.
Okay. I mean, like it goes for the Israeli and the Kurds, because they say they support, but at the same time they were arming Turkey. They were arming Turkey and the Kurds.
I mean, that's why I keep saying we have, all of us, whoever believe in human rights, whoever believe in international law, we have to work so hard to educate people on the ground, because whether it's this minority or that minority, there are those people, the superpower, the regional power. These causes, these minorities are always used, and there is this proxy war, and then this party to be driven into that, because they are weak, they are they are promised, but they can let go anytime. And we have to be aware it's a very, very hard reality now in the MENA region. And at the same time, what can we do to educate people, like you interview these people in the street, because they don't know, they are watching whatever they are fed with. Who is, when Gaza is bombed, who is speaking? The only guy who's speaking is Erdogan, not any Arab leader, but Erdogan. So we have to understand, for those people who are vulnerable, if they hear, oh my God, he is the one, who is always with us. So they will never, of course, you have to expect this reaction from someone in the street. And I think people like us, we shouldn't take it personal. We should hear very well what the politicians are saying, the statements by the politicians, whether Bibi Netanyahu or Erdogan, where their politics are going. And at the same time, you have Russia now in the region, not only Turkey, you have the US, and now you have the EU and the NATO, how to save NATO. So there are many elements, and we have to be able to see all of that. And what can we do from here?
Which is a lot. We have to see a lot.
Which is a lot. But the only thing, but the only thing is to make it clear, and luckily we can have something from here.
We want to make it clear with the first statement.
Yes, sorry.
It's just a little thing. The division among minorities and international questions are being exploited by the political right in the Netherlands. So, who agrees, who disagrees with this statement?
What you mean with this statement? Can you clarify a little bit?
Yeah, the divisions among Kurds and Turks, Kurds and Palestinians in the anti-racist movement.
The right wing, you mean?
The right wing, they're exploiting this. Like we saw all these,
of course,
the resolutions. So if everybody agrees, so we can go to the second statement. Then there is no.
But I can give an example to support this statement. When we had in the Netherlands the riots in Rotterdam, the Erdogan supporters.
2017.
2017, and that was really bad for the Netherlands. And that kind of examples can support racism and discrimination, and DENK is also part of it, like Hila said. They are defending Erdogan and his policies, and they're also talking about discrimination in the Netherlands. So that's really it's really hypocrite. It's not a
but you
question.
mentioned the riots in 2017 during the elections, which was 5 years ago, and it was used by the political right to gain seats.
Like you can say, look, they give, they disturb the peace in this country, like that. And it was really overwhelming that in one night so many people were in Rotterdam. It was organized. It was organized by pro-Erdogan members. Otherwise, it's impossible on a Sunday evening, spontaneous with hundreds or thousands of people there. It's impossible. So I think this is really...
But the political right is then saying, yes, this is what we are talking about. We have to talk about this.
But another example for hypocrisy is Forum van Democratie, right? They are pro-Israel, and we know that some of their youth is saying anti-Semitic things.
Forum for Democracy,
the whole kind of scandal around anti-Semitism there is not for nothing. I mean, we know that this pro-Israel can go together with anti-Semitism itself in the right wing. We saw it in America. We also see it here in the politics of this country. So it's a posture. It's a position. It's a political position to support Israel and to be pro-Israeli. But at the same time, that doesn't exclude all kinds of prejudices. And I think this is so good that this was exposed, because we now know the exact hypocrisy of the right wing here.
I'm not sure, but is there another term to be overtly pro-Israel, like philo-Semitism?
This is, you can say that this is, but I'm not even sure it is genuine. You know what I mean? It's part of the political game. It's part of the political correctness here in the Netherlands to fight anti-Semitism and be pro-Israel. And we know what that means. That means suppressing human rights. That means suppressing freedom of speech. And that means going after any pro-Palestinian group. And this right wing is, of course, profiting from it.
And with that definition, they have created a distraction. And instead of dealing with the real issue, they are letting go the right wing, which is not serving the purpose.
And I think this love for Israel of the right wing is more hatred of Islam than a love for Israel. Apart from Israel being an ethnocentric state, which especially FVD sees as an example, it is in the program very, very explicitly.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
This also, for example, when there was the Rojava situation last year, PVV was organizing a demonstration in support of the Kurds.
Yeah.
Now that also creates a division in the solidarity movement, because I am not going to join a PVV demonstration.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So I think that's
I saw Serda's hands raised.
Yeah, of course, they are also there.
But then you're next.
I think this is a very interesting discussion. So I also wanted to add a small thing. Is that just with the example of Taglit about Erdogan with his statements or announcements that they're in solidarity with the Palestinian people. The same goes for like the right-wing parties. But I think we should not consider this as a success of their policy, but as a failure of the leftist movement or the left movement itself. So because we obviously we don't represent them, or they don't feel represented by us, and that makes these politicians even more successful.
So you're saying that the leftist movement is divided?
Divided, yes, and maybe not. That's one thing. Totally agree. But another thing is also that maybe that since you cannot, like Taglit actually said, if you are in the streets for the Kurdish people, but you are totally ignoring the Palestinian cause, then yes, people should, especially people in Europe, feel not represented as oppressed people.
That's
so I think this lack of solidarity is also making them, the politicians, successful.
I also want to ask this to Taglit. When you said about we have to educate people and everything, but how do you do that? For example, if you show your solidarity with the Palestinians or with the Kurds, you're put immediately in the terrorist frame. And how can you deal with that?
There is a huge problem here when it comes to the education. I mean, like at the school, I have a kid, she's studying the Holocaust. She studied, and for me as a Palestinian who was, I was raised in Gaza. I was never, I've never studied that. Actually we had the Israeli curriculum at that time, but they never taught us anything about their history and our history, nothing. So I come from that generation, and then my daughter is studying, and it's beautiful. I really I was so happy that I went even to the museum with her. I myself went to the Jewish museum, and I was impressed. But I was shocked at the same time, because there is something that is misguiding here. I mean, when it comes to, there is the kitchen and the table Seder dinner, at the Jewish museum. And there is the Resistance Museum, and there is the Jewish Museum. And there is the Resistance Museum. There was Palestine before 48. So it is mentioned that, Jews went to Palestine before they start going to Palestine. But at the Jewish Museum, it's not mentioned at all. So it's interesting. So this is part of the education. What do you teach, the children? But I think there is work that should be done here, because nobody, my kids don't know. They will go to school here, but they will never hear the word Palestine, Palestinians, or the Kurdish, or
so it starts with education.
I think there has to be work to be done, starting from that generation, because if you go around and many people ask you, where are you from? I say Palestinian, and then the young people, and then if I ask them, do you know where is that? Nobody knows, unless they studied at a university level or whatever. And here the education system, once you are finished with Bas's Hall, you can go here or there. Those people, 40% don't go there. They will never study anything in regard to the history, whatever the identity.
You mean the practical schools?
Yeah, the practical. It's difficult. So there has to be work, because there is complete, absence when it comes to these issues.
So we have to focus on...
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, no problem.
So education is something to be done, and also awareness campaign using social media, as I said.
Yes, thank you. Ozan, you had a reaction?
Yeah, I forgot the point what I wanted to say, but I would add the education system in the Netherlands. That's in the Week Against Racism. I would like to mention that once you have an advice at the lagere school in groep 8,
yes,
a low advice, it's really difficult to go to the university. It's almost impossible. I witnessed it. I experienced it. I succeeded, but many not. So and children with color, they get a lower advice than white children. So this is really an important point.
Okay.
Yeah. So real work should start there. I think it is really serious if you want to come out with a generation that is aware. You know.
Second statement of the day: we build a broad anti-racist movement by supporting oppressed people and not states.
Maybe I would say something here. When we talk about the Kurds, it's first of all, what is the people? I spent at least 2 or 3 weeks with my course on democracy to problematize this notion of the people, as if there is one, right? And we're all united and we're all one people. This is, of course, nationalism is, of course, has a long history. And so I think if I look at this, even the Kurds are a wonderful example, because you have the Kurdish that are aligned with Israel, that do accept weapons from Israel, that are fighting with Israeli weapons, and are really grateful for Israeli support. And you have the Kurdish revolutionary movement, who has been trained in the 80s in Lebanon by the Palestinian factions, left factions. So you have even a split within this Kurdish liberation movement, you can say. So and I'm not going to go into Palestinian politics, but I'm going to leave it to you. But an Israeli society too is not a united society. This is not a Sparta.
So it's difficult to be pro or against this
really,
statement.
I mean, the notion of the people that we have in mind, that we are talking Palestine, Kurdistan, that it's one thing. We need to break and educate ourselves about it.
But it's also a notion that what Dagrit said, it's a matter of basic human rights for everyone.
Self-determination.
Exactly.
But if I just want to, for this statement, you have an oppressed people in Turkey.
Absolutely.
So, and we should be in solidarity with the people and not with the oppressing state.
Well, I think when you look at Israel and Turkey, these are Machiavellian states. They are led by Machiavellian rulers. The state itself is very ruthless and brutal. And it does not hesitate to suppress opposition. We see that now in Turkey at the university level. We see what is happening in Turkish universities. I witnessed it firsthand when I went to the hearings at the Supreme Court in Turkey against academics who support the Kurdish or were protesting against war in the Kurdish areas. And it's stunning to see the power of the state. And I know that, of course, really well from Israel. Let me talk about the Israeli state. So obviously, when I teach the Middle East, I try always to bring the civil society perspective for my students, so that they know there is a women's movement, there is a workers' movement, there is a human rights movement. And so that they understand that society is, first of all, complicates matters very, very much.
And that way you really get rid of the stereotypes if such education is offered, because I think that our enemy is the stereotypes. And they are very, but also if we talk about real politics, Turkey, sorry.
That was what I'm pointing at, the stereotypes, exactly. No, that's good. A label like terrorism,
it's awful.
Violent people, everything.
Yeah.
And I can also, I was brought up in a very Turkish nationalist environment, and the only thing I know about Kurds, Armenians, and it was only violence.
Yeah.
And only when I mingled into these people and I saw about this women's movement and everything. So I think we should head to. But
exposure.
Yes.
Exposure. But the sad part, not only we have the siege now, we have COVID-19. So less exposure by the people who are living, under whatever regime. And it's really scary what's coming due to such,
I mean, Israel does not recognize the Armenian genocide. So with all due respect to to this hypocritical statements by Netanyahu, with all due respect, it's just cynical to use this history of the people.
It was also a long time an Israeli policy to downgrade everything what had to do with the Armenian genocide.
And they supported Azerbaijan now with the war in Armenia. Turkish drones, Israeli drones in the hands of the Azars.
These questions are also, a whole program. It's also important to point at that. But let's go to the... I saw Serda's hand. Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to interrupt when you're joining online. But about the previous statement, it's totally, it's correct, this statement, but if you dig in it, maybe there can pop up some differences, because you are against the state, but who are you defending then? And as progressive revolutionary leftist people, we should stand on the side of people's movement. But then you have this discussion, which movement is people's movement? Well, movements who are not linked to any states and who are just relying on their own power, those are the people's movements which should be supported. And in the Kurdish case, it's the PKK, who has millions of people supporting it and is only relying on its own power. And in Europe, we should maybe discuss about even our own environments, because to give a simple example, I joined a Palestinian demonstration and I had a speech in the name of Kurdish movement or organization. And after me, there was a Palestinian guy, and he said in Arabic language, I didn't understand, but I translated, that he said that they should only focus on their own cause. So that was actually a subtle message to me, like, okay, the Kurds are there, but we have our own problems, so let's not mix those two things up. So the problem is not only about the ignorant people, but also the organized ones. So I think that one of the ways to educate people is to bring those grassroots movements all together. They have to come together, the organized ones.
Okay.
In order to educate the others.
Serda, okay. Thank you, but you will immediately get the reaction if you say we have to support the people's movement, and also which is the PKK is part of this people's movement of the Kurdish people. Then you will immediately get the answer from, so you support violence. And what if you get this answer, and what do you say then?
Well, then the real discussion starts, because then we have to start discussing about armed struggle or armed struggle in fascist states, for example. How do we analyze this? So these kind of discussions will start, yes. But our first discussion will not be about these movements in the Middle East, but as people who are living in Europe as migrants, we have a lot of common things. So maybe we should first come together around these problems.
Yes. But that stereotype that you're struggling with about being violent, I think, there is a very simple example to respond. That is, the Palestinians, when they use, during the Intifada 1, Intifada 2, they use violence. Okay, immediately they are referred to as terrorists. Okay, nowadays they are not using violence. What are they using? There is this movement called BDS. Boycott, divestment, sanctions, pure peaceful movement. How they are dealt with now? Anti-Semitic immediately, and there is war against them. War by all means. Israel is investing so much to fight it. So
the violence is
the hypocrisy of the West must be also explained.
So they're supporting violence. The West is supporting violence.
Indirectly.
Exactly.
The failure of policies the failure of the international leaders, the failure of the international community indirectly has led to the emergence of this or that.
Okay, I see a couple of hands. Yeah. Guido, Hila, and then Ozan.
Well, I think we should support the peoples as it was defined by Serdar, but I think the position of the PKK is problematic, and in order to have a very broad solidarity, we should solidarize with the HDP, which is peacefully elected by the peoples from Turkey, especially the Kurds, in a number of councils. And historically, I think you're right that the PKK has made movement in the Turkish society. I think they made huge mistakes, serious mistakes, even at the best moments of the Kurdish movement just after the liberation of Kobani. They made mistakes in Cizre, for instance, which the Kurdish people from Cizre, for instance, and the other cities, they were severely suppressed by the Turkish army. But however, I think it was still the best. Historically, there was developing in the direction of broad peaceful movements like BDS in Palestine and the HDP as political expression of democratic aspirations of all the peoples of Turkey in order to focus on those. However, the Turkish state is pushing back the Kurdish revolution, which of course had an engine block in Syria, and which Kobani was the highlight. But,
Guido, thank you. We still have 3 minutes.
My second speech.
Yes, thank you for your speech. We have still 3 minutes left, so I think a short statement by everybody.
No, very quickly,
Yes.
I think it is important to mention also, if you want to respond to whoever is criticizing, they're violent, whatever, there is International Criminal Court. And how is the EU, US, are dealing with it? They are not supporting, and it depends, and this is very, very scary. Very scary that we have reached this stage. And that is also
disconnected totally. Yes. Hila?
I think that whenever we are confronted with this sort of issues, we need to direct the attention to state violence, state terrorism, the way that states are suppressing own citizens or non-citizens and subject and occupied people. One of the things that I think we can remember is that there is an experiment undergoing in North Syria. And this Kurdish experiment in North Syria of a democratic confederation is really interesting to look at. It is anti-nationalist, and it is not hostile to minorities. And somehow they manage a very, very delicate balance between many people who are coming from many groups and are still able to coordinate and to work together in North Syria. So I think it's a really interesting example.
I think we should have another program only about this specific experiment in Rojava. Statements?
Yes, closing statements. Well, I would like to say also in what Serdar have said about the movements. It's the week against racism, so we need to be aware of our own prejudices rather than looking to the other. And a very important thing to do is you can have a different voice. Like not all Israelis are for the occupation. Not all Turk people agree with the oppression of the Kurds. You initiated such an organization. That's very important. Turkish-Kurdish dialogue. I participated in a Jewish-Muslim dialogue project with friends, and I learned a lot. And I think you also initiated an organization about this issue. So I think these are the real heroes.
Where are you? Where are they? Please.
It's not very visible.
We're home. We need
Thank you.
We need funds for that. We need really funds for that, but they are there. They are here.
And Guido, do you have some final words?
We need to do it all over again.
Yes.
So when Serdar and I are able to join at the table, and I think we have some interesting things in order Yeah. One remark. When I was in basisschool, a long time ago, nothing about Dutch colonialism. Nothing. Nothing about racism. Not about slavery. So about education.
It's changing now. It's changing.
Life Matter really has succeeded,
yes,
I think, to
Black
push.
Lives Matter, Kurdish Lives Matter, Palestinian Lives Matter.
But respect to Black, really, I will never forget the rally at the Dam Square of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, it was huge. And Serda?
It was very powerful.
Well, since it's very short time, once again, yes, I think grassroots movements should come together. I mean, we are not representing any people's movement here. We are democratic mass organizations. So in that sense, we can gather and discuss about this. But I believe that the solution, that education is also going through the street, to come together in the street. It's very crucial, I think. And in that sense, yes, all of us have a lot of tasks and duties. Thank you for giving the opportunity to talk, but it went too fast.
Yes, thank you. And about also mentioning the streets, because the 21st of March we will come together in Amsterdam, but also different places in the Netherlands. And yes, thank you all for joining the discussion. And I also want to thank the committee 21st of March and Pakhuis de Zwijger. And Max de Bloeg for the main organizer of the week of Against Racism. And also Nieuwwij, Salto and AT5 for promoting this event. Tagrit, Hilla, Ozan, Doreen, Serda and Guido, thank you for this discussion. It was too short and we have to do this again.
Nobody asked me what did I tell my daughter after, I mean, yes.
Are we on air still?
I don't know.
No, but so I told her,